How do you help women to go, no, 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 like, don't do that to yourself. Like, you do have something, especially in the face of so much rejection, and you kept going. It
Yeah.
seems superhuman.
The thing that I love is that you're talking about this, right? Imposter syndrome and all of that. And I talk about a lot of, stories pertaining to that in the book as well. The very first thing that is so important for everybody listening right now is like literally everybody has it. I've never met a person
So true.
who doesn't have it. Everybody has it, right? And so it's like, okay, that's the first thing. Because once we know that, we're like, oh, this person I watch on television every day has it. Oh,
Yep.
like everybody has it. And that, right, just wrapping our heads around that is really empowering, because it's like, okay, I'm not alone in this. It's normal. I feel unqualified. I feel all those things, right? Everybody has it. The second thing is, I do a lot of things when I start to feel it. Like I've built this, I talk about a little bit about this in the book, where I built kind of this own imaginary toolbox that I pull from when I catch myself going there. You know what I mean? And there's things I tell myself. One of them is, I think it was, I'm trying to remember this part isn't in the book, but I'm just going to share it. I feel like it was Steve Jobs. I don't remember who said this, but one person shared this quote that was so powerful, and it's always stuck with me. They basically said, every single thing that's ever been built or created or done in the world was created by someone just like you and me. And when you think about it, it's
Yeah.
true. It's all true. And I think about that. I write so many things. For me, when you see my circle of friends, they're all different faiths. Some of them have no faith. I love, but their hearts are huge, right? So I love having powerful people around me that remind me of who I am and help talk me out of my BS when I start, like, oh, I don't know if I can do, and but for me also, I keep a lot of empowering statements around me that I pull from. And, one of them that's huge for me, because faith is a big deal to me, although I think this applies to anybody, no matter what their faith. But, there's a famous saying that really fills my soul when I start to feel imposter syndrome or doubt myself or feel like I don't have what it takes or like I'm not qualified, right? How many times do we feel like we're not qualified? And these famous words say, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And for me, I feel like when we have
Ooh.
when we have a knowing in our gut, right? And we can't shake it, right? I feel like that's part of your calling or your purpose in life. And I think we can have multiple of those. But when you have it, for me, I kept feeling this calling. Like I was supposed to create this dream, launch this dream, and I was supposed to do whatever I can to shift culture in the beauty industry. I just kept feeling it. And during all these years of no's, because when we finally created this product, and by the way, I mean, I just thought, oh, as an entrepreneur, like so many people will relate to this. You're like, okay, this product is amazing. Finally, yes, it's just going to do well, right? Oh my gosh, the first 3 years, I couldn't even afford to pay myself, right? And every retailer we sent the product to either said no or never replied. Every meeting I got in person when I thought I was going to crush it and kill it. I remember this first big Sephora meeting I had, and I literally left the building, going down the elevator, walking as fast as I could to get out the door. This is in downtown San Francisco. And I could barely afford the plane ticket to get there. And it was a big no. And I was so devastated. I was trying, because the elevator ride down from this big no was filled with people that I'm guessing worked at Sephora. And I'm like, I'm a CEO. I cannot cry. I've got to hold my shit together. I've got to make it. And I remember getting out of the elevator, rushing out the side of the building on Market Street and like pushing myself against this brick wall next to a fast food restaurant and just sobbing as hard as I could. It was no after no. QVC, I remember years of no. And I finally got the head guy, Alan Burke, who is responsible for building this billion-dollar empire on QVC. And he got all these luxury brands from department stores to want to sell on QVC, and they still do. And he's just a genius. And I remember finally getting him on the phone. And I remember pacing in the office, like so nervous because I needed a yes. And well, I should say pacing in our office, AKA the living room, because right. And he got on the phone and he's like, we've reviewed your products with all of our buyers. It's unanimous. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And I was so devastated because with my mission of wanting to shift culture around beauty, I just knew, oh my gosh, if I can get on QVC, it's not like a Photoshop magazine. It is live. It is live television to 100 million homes. And I could prove how my product works live. And I could show models of that represent every different type of and size and age and skin color and skin tone. And I just knew in my gut, right? I knew in my gut when we check in with our purpose, with our calling, with our mission, I knew that I was supposed to be on QVC. And to finally get this big call from the head of all of it, Alan Burke, telling me I'm not the right fit and we're not the right fit for QVC or their customers. It's devastating when people tell you you're not the right fit. And when people that you are so tempted to put on a pedestal because they're experts and they've created incredible things and they're known as visionaries. When touted visionaries are telling you one thing and your gut is telling you another, it's hard to keep going. It's also hard to feel like, well, wait, what if my gut is wrong? And what if I'm not enough? And what if I'm, like he said, not the right fit? And what if I'm not qualified? And here's the thing is, fast forward, a long time later, when we finally got one shot on QVC, we finally got a yes from a buyer, not from Alan Burke. We finally got a yes, and we got one shot, which came down to 10 minutes. And we would I knew, and here's the thing, Kathy, is at the time, and this was a little over 3 years into our business. So at the time, we were still selling like 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, barely keeping the lights on. And QVC needed us to manufacture, pay for, and ship in over 6,000 units of our Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer in order to sell in a 10-minute window to hit their sales target or not come back. And the biggest thing that was on the line was that in beauty, it was a consignment deal, which meant we had to pay for all of it, make it, ship it in, and we only got paid for what sold. So and as an entrepreneur, you know this, everyone listening knows this, like never take a purchase order you can't afford to lose. But in this case, we had nothing. This was our last chance at like not going out of business. And it was a big yes. And we decided to kind of risk it all. We applied for SBA loans to cover the cost of making the 6,000 units. 22 banks said no. It was bank number 23. They gave us enough money just to cover the purchase order in an SBA loan. So we had one shot on QVC and we had to sell, right? We had to hit their sales target, dollars per minute or not come back. When we got the one shot, I flew out there. I was there a week before. I went out a week before this airing and I sat in a rental car in the parking lot right out front every day. And I just sat there because it felt so heavy and so big. And I remembered, you talk about Oprah, actually. By the way, Oprah was the very first person to read the book cover to cover because I wanted her blessing on the parts I included about her. Otherwise, I would have never included. Of course,
you had that stories. Epic piece of this whole puzzle. My God,
it's a crazy story. And I got her blessing at the very end of the book. I shared. Okay. When you talk about I've never, not to be off track, but I've never shared all the real story behind the story of everything. So this book is the first time, including all the personal stuff. But anyhow, I sat in that parking lot staring at the front door of QVC. And I remembered this Oprah episode where she talked about the color purple and how she was so obsessed with it that it felt like it was too much for her to carry anymore because she wanted it so bad. And someone had told her, oh, real actresses are up for the part. And right. And so she told the story of just going to a retreat where she was running the track in circles and singing I Surrender All and asking God to take it from her. And then Steven Spielberg called. And anyways, so I remembered this episode. Anyone who's seen that episode will remember, but I literally channeled that. I'm sitting in this car in the parking lot. I start singing I Surrender All because it felt too heavy for me to carry. It felt like the next time I walk through these doors, at QVC, I'm either going to walk back out of business, or with my whole life changed. It was one or the other, because we had one shot. And if you do not hit the sales goal, you don't come back. And the hardest thing, and I talk a lot about learning how to tune in and trust our own gut and trust ourselves, even when everyone else is saying something different. And this was probably the biggest lesson I've ever learned in my career and life, was in this moment as it pertains to trusting my gut, because we had one shot. And what we did is we hired these third-party consultants, and they helped so many people sell their products so well on television and other channels as well. And when we met with them, they all said the same thing to me, which is, okay, if you want a chance at doing well, here's what you need to do. You need to use these type of models, which were just like the ones I had seen in magazines for years. And, you need to produce yourself this way. And I would say to them, okay, but what if I'm sitting at home and I have rosacea? Exactly. And what if I'm, 75 years old and I have hyperpigmentation? How is anyone going to know this product works for them if they don't see someone using it who looks like them? And, we would fight about it. And these experts wanted the best for me. They wanted me to win, but they were just telling me what they knew. Right. And this is so important, is so many times experts, visionaries, etc., like, you can never take it personally when they don't believe in your dream or think you have what it takes, because no matter how visionary they are, typically they still only will believe something will be successful if they've already seen it successful before. So if you're doing something new or novel or different, or you're going to put your own take on it, they're not going to realize they're doing this, but they're likely not going to think it's going to work, because subconsciously they've never seen it work before. And so I'm sitting there knowing I have one shot on TV, and knowing the experts are telling me use these type of models. And yet my gut instinct, my why, my authenticity, right? My authentic reason for launching this business is to not use that type of, to use every type of model, right? And it's really hard in these decisions in life when your experts are telling you one thing, your gut's telling you another. And we had one shot. And I just remember this moment sitting in that car, singing I Surrender All, crying. And I just remember thinking of, who is this woman that's going to be watching me? If I have the blessing of her spending her precious time turning her television on and seeing me, I'm not going to waste it. I'm not even going to focus on, let me sell as much as I can. What do I want to stand for? And I just remember having this moment hit me where I imagine so many different types of women. And one of them that always stands out in my head when I think back to this memory is, I imagine a single mom folding laundry in Nebraska who literally doesn't even have time to remember that she matters and that she's beautiful. And I would rather have her look up on her TV and even not buy anything and see me showing women that look like her and stand for that than sell a shitload of product and stand for nothing. And I knew what I had to do, but sometimes when we know what we have to do, it doesn't mean it's easy. And when so the live show happened, and the countdown clock at 10 minutes started, and it was 9:59, 9:58, 9:50. And I'm like, oh shit. But you can't try to sell and you can't look freaked out, or nothing will sell either. And I just remember literally pouring everything I had on the air. And I remember the moment my bare face came up on national television, my bright red cheeks. And I remember going to all the different models that looked like, real people. And I'll never forget, it was I was shaking like a leaf. Oh my gosh. And then the whole cell, because everything was on the line. And then I remember right toward the end, the host was like, the deep shade is down to 200. The tan shade is almost, and I was like, what? Oh shit. Oh. And then I remember all of a sudden at the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up, and I literally tears streamed down my face. I remember my husband rushed through the double doors of the studio, and I looked at him, and they cut the live show, and boom, they're on to the next sale of the next product. I looked at him, and I'm sobbing, and I'm real women have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And it was this whole thing. And that one show turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year, 151 the next year. And then we've done 250 live shows a year on QVC for 8 years in a row, and built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. It is right now at this moment, to this day. And the only reason I share that is for every person listening. It was 3 years of no from QVC. It was Alan Burke saying, you are not the right fit for our customers or for QVC. And we finally did get a shot. And so 2 things about that. And by the way, oh my gosh. So by the way, okay, I love, for everyone listening, like literally no one can tell you are not the right fit, right? Like nobody can tell you that. And I feel in life, our own calling is always stronger than any opposition. Sometimes it feels like our opposition is huge, but your opposition cannot compete with your calling. And what it comes down to is which one you decide to listen to, right?
So good.
And like, so this part, so fast forward, we're on QVC now, doing really, really well. And Alan Burke ends up, I get to know him. He's freaking a genius. He became our biggest champion, our biggest cheerleader. He's to this day right now one of my closest mentors in my life. So awesome. And then he retired from QVC after like a million years there. I don't know how many decades, but he retired. And we ended up hiring him on our advisory board in a paid position. And it was this moment where I realized, Kathy, like, oh, the guy who rejected me is now working for me. Yeah, right? Cool. And it was like, oh my gosh, like nobody can tell you how big your dream can be. No one can tell you you're not the right fit. And here's the last thing I'll say about this. I didn't take it personally when he said no, right? Mm-hmm. I've gotten a lot of rejections. You know, I talk about the investor who told me they wouldn't invest in someone because they wouldn't invest in our company because they didn't think women would buy makeup from someone who looked like me with my body and weight. Like I've had every type of rejection, and it's so easy for us because we're human to take these personally, right? And it wasn't that I wasn't hurt. It wasn't any of that. But professionally, I always made sure to not take it personally. I always made sure to treat it always as like, oh, this will be a yes one day. And then I'll decide if I want to partner with them, but it will be a yes one day. And I always had that attitude. And so with Alan, even after that tough no happened, Alan Burke at QVC, I still nurtured that relationship. And I still said, it's going to be a yes one day and all those things. And here's what I'll say, you guys, is, you know, I believe, and you, for everyone, it's different. For some people, it's God. For some people, it's a universe. For some people, it's love. I believe in perfect timing, even when it doesn't feel so perfect to us. And what I'll say about that is like, what I learned many years later is had Alan Burke said yes when I wanted him to, we would have failed miserably because I didn't know what I didn't know. And we were not operationally sophisticated enough to handle the back end of the business of an account the size of QVC. Wow. I just didn't know it. And sometimes our hardest no's in life are actually like serendipitous grace. Yeah, like totally wrapped in this package labeled painful rejection. Yep. And anyways, it was a big thing. God. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, I'm like live off the cuff with you, and I love it so much. But you asked something, and I just realized I forgot to answer it. Yeah. No, but you asked for people that think their idea has already been done, or they asked for right. One thing I want to share about that. I'm getting hyped right now because this is like, oh my gosh, so I talk about this lesson so much in the book because I wish I had learned this earlier. I wish I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep. If so many people talk themselves out of their dream, they talk themselves out of their truth because exactly what you said, they're like, oh, that person's doing so well with this idea already on social media. And this person did really well. And this person, oh no, here's the deal. Nobody, I don't even care how many, there was millions of makeup brands out there when we launched a makeup company. Please don't ever think that because your idea has already been done, that it impacts your ability to do it and succeed. It just doesn't. And when you look at all of the researchers that research authenticity and all of that, they talk about how it's impossible to have an authentic connection with another human being, a real connection, unless you show up authentically, right? If you show up as your representative or who you think the person wants you to be or whatever, you'll never have an authentic connection, which also can mean with your customers, because your customers are a relationship too, right? And with that said, as long as you show up fully, authentically who you are, it doesn't matter your idea's already been done. No one can do it the way you're going to do it. Like nobody can share it, express it, communicate it, create it the way you're going to do it. And so it's literally, as long as you're authentic and that through line of authenticity is in you, it's impossible for anyone else to have done your idea because they can't do it like you. It's impossible. And I just think that is so important. And I'll also say that because I've done now over 1,000 live shows on QVC myself. And the one thing that happens is you're there all hours of the day and night, because you might have a show at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. The fun part of it, and the hours were very hard. I did it for 8 years. I spent almost every holiday in the QVC green room and all those things, which it was the biggest blessing. It allowed people to become aware of It Cosmetics, and we couldn't afford advertising at the time or anything. So it was the biggest gift. But one of the things that I love most about it was that in the green room, even when you're stressed out in the green room at QVC, you get to meet so many other founders of companies, right? And you all end up bonding and all the things, the good, the bad. So not everyone's nice, but you meet a lot of people. And the through line, talking about authenticity, is when I look back at doing over 1,000 shows on QVC, one commonality between the people who make it and the people who don't, because most people go to QVC and they're on air one time, a couple times, and they're gone, right? Mm-hmm. And when I go, why is it some people make it and some people don't? It's never their personality type. It's actually, I wish I could say it was, but it's never even if they're nice. It's like, the one thing that I saw is the people who are the same on air, the people who are the same on air as they are off air, they're the people who last, right? Sometimes they're quirky and they're this and they're that and they're wild and you're like, they're crazy. And then they're that same way on air selling their product. They last because you can't fake authenticity. And viewers are smart, customers are smart, and they sense it, and they can't connect with you unless you're the same. Your heart is open and you're the freaking same. And the people that are even really great, awesome people, like good hearts in the green room, then they go on air and they're all of a sudden the professional representative that they think they're supposed to be, or they're really cool and funky because they think they're supposed to be, but that's not really who they are. They never last. And I feel like when people get this, it's freedom in so many ways, because it's so easy, especially in a social media world, to get distracted and compare ourselves and go, oh, this is working for so-and-so. Maybe I should do more of that. It's like, oh no, that's when you start to chip away at your own secret sauce and your own potential.
Jimmy, it's a compelling story. What you share with a lot of successful entrepreneurs is most of us only hear the $1.2 billion sale to L'Oreal. They don't realize that you had hundreds and thousands of no's for years and years, and you were selling one or two products a day for years, and down to your last $1,000. You applied to 20 plus SBA loans. They all said no. Finally, the last one said yes, so that you could go all in on the inventory for QVC and then own it all if you didn't sell it all. And you have now been on hundreds of podcasts for this book that you're donating to a great philanthropic organization. One of the big insights I took away from the QVC experience was that you said every time you hit a goal, you never felt joy, but rather you felt relief. Mm-hmm. And that really hit me because, like you, I am a small budding entrepreneur with some one or two orders coming in a day, right? And I'm looking long-term at my own success. And I want to feel joy in accomplishing goals, not relief, but I do feel relief. I don't feel the joy. Speak to everyone listening and watching right now that has a dream, that has a side hustle, that has an entrepreneurial business. Maybe they're perhaps just full-time employees in a company. They're an intrapreneur inside a bigger company, and you want them to feel joy, not relief, when they accomplish a goal. How did you cross that bridge from relief to finding joy?
Yeah, I was in a long stretch of burnout, self-imposed burnout, and I talk a lot about work addiction and busyness addiction, which are like other forms of addiction where they almost numb us and separate us from ourselves. I talk about realizing I was doing a lot of it wrong. I talk about how I don't believe I needed to do 100-hour weeks for 10 years to build a billion-dollar company. But my journey was after 3 years of hundreds and hundreds of no's, when we finally started getting success, I almost for a while couldn't believe it, right? Part of my journey is learning to believe I'm worthy of my own success, of being in my own skin, of being in my own body, of all of those things. I talk a lot in the book about self-doubt, body doubt, God doubt, all of that stuff. Because I think leadership starts on the inside. And I realized, Scott, that, because I had heard no for so long, when we started getting yeses and all this momentum was happening and we started winning awards everywhere and getting into all these big beauty stores. And, when we hit #1 on QVC, I always felt like, oh my gosh, I've got to strike while the iron's hot. This might all come crashing down at any moment, God forbid. Like I would have those thoughts, which are a form of imposter syndrome of, am I worthy of this success? Do I deserve this? Am I qualified to have it, right? And I had to really go through this emotional journey that I talk about and believe it. Even once we were acquired by L'Oreal, it was the largest acquisition in their US history. And they made me the first woman to hold a CEO title of a brand in their 100+ year history. And I remember being in that position and in that room and in that space and needing to summon the belief that I was qualified for that. I talk about the deep stuff in this book that a lot of times CEOs and leaders are embarrassed to talk about because we always have to show up as the leader for our teams, right? Sometimes we always have to show up as the leader for our own families. We have to show up this way because we're the leader. But what about all the real stuff we're dealing with? And I think part of really why I wanted to write this book is to really share those real stories behind the stories of the things I failed at and did wrong, wish I had done differently. And also the greatest things I did and the lessons I learned the hard way that hopefully will save other people time and money and and have stronger teams and save themselves crying themselves to sleep at night. But there's some stuff I did wrong that I talk about. And one of those things is I never felt the victories during a long season of a number of years because I was just driving so hard, almost in survival mode, to build the business and living in burnout. And, I talk about, for anyone who started a business with a friend or family member or their partner, I talk about the real hard stuff there too, because, I got to the point, Scott, where it was another goal hit, another show hit, finally a yes from this retailer, hiring, building, and just driving so hard. And my husband and I both were in parallel trying to start a family. So in parallel to all this, I was going through like fertility treatments and miscarriages and all kinds of stuff, which I talk about that personal journey for the first time ever, because that would be going on.
With your journey of like going from not believing in yourself to believing in yourself and believing you're enough, how was it a decision that you made, or was it really just this, process of basically your entire life up until then?
Yeah, it's been so many lessons along the way and so many setbacks that I later realized were setups. So many things I did wrong, and then really looking back at what were those things I did right? Looking back at when I made decisions where I listened to other people's opinions or the experts instead of actually listening to my own gut. Oh, those were the things I did wrong. When I look back at what happened, right? And it's been building on all of these things. And so, in the book, I share so many stories, and it's wild because like literally 95% of the book is stuff I've never shared before, ever. And I had this realization that a really big realization that, because I get DMs on Instagram every single day from so many girls and women and people who say like, oh, wow, you started with nothing and built a $1 billion business from your living room. Like, did you just get lucky, or was like, did someone give you a big break, or like, did you, right? All those things. And I kind of had this realization, oh, when you just see the highlight reel or you just read the headlines, it makes it seem like, oh, maybe she just got lucky, or she's, whatever. And it's like, you know what? I felt this strong calling on my heart that if I could pour everything I've learned into how you do that, like how did I do that, into one book, that would be of service to other people, right? And so, like, for example, I'm donating 100% of the proceeds, by the way, every penny from the book. I'm literally purely just doing it for exactly the question you just asked, which is to help every other person out there learn to believe that stepping into all of who they're born to be is possible, right? The thing, when I look back on all of the lessons from going through years of hearing no, because I created a company called It Cosmetics in my living room, where I started with an idea and close to no money. And I just thought, once we created an amazing product that worked, I thought it would just do well, right? And then I started this journey of every beauty retailer saying no, every department store, every QVC, everybody saying, no, you're not the right fit. We don't think your positioning is right. We don't think you're right for the beauty industry, all those things. And when I look back and I went through 3 years of hearing no's from everybody, and got down to under $1,000 in my bank account, which was our personal and business bank account, and didn't know how I was going to make it. And when I look back on all of the journey, like, there's so many lessons I learned along the way, but one of the biggest ones, and really a huge through line in this whole book, is that, like, yeah, I worked really, really hard, and I didn't give up. And not giving up every time you get knocked down, every time you get a setback, that's so important, because at the end of the day, a lot of people never realize their dreams because they actually just quit or they give up, or they let their own self-doubt talk them out of it. So I didn't give up, and I worked really, really hard, but like, how I actually built a $1 billion business from my living room was like the most important thing I did when I look back at everything, was like, I made the decision to believe that I could. And when I try to dissect how did I do that, that's really why I wrote this book, is sharing every single lesson on how do you actually truly peel back the layers on your why, not just do a why. Because that's the other thing too. A lot of people, when they might keep a goal journal, or they might write out their goals, and then a lot of people will go another step, right? And they'll talk about their why. Like, I'm doing this for, because I want to one day buy a house, or I want to, all these things, or do something for my kids, or pay for their college, or pay off my student loans, whatever it is. And what I've seen over the years is that those whys, they sound really good. And when you tell them to other people, they like sound great. But if it's not deep, 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 deep to your core, you're going to quit. It's not going to be strong enough for you to keep going when you face all these setbacks. And so one of the things I talk about in the book was like, because I've done a ton of things wrong. And I share those too. I've never shared this stuff before. I'm actually freaking out, to be honest, but I just know it's not about me. It's going to be of service to so many people to know they're not alone in their setbacks and in their hard times and in how to handle them. But in the book, I talk about, like, I did a ton of things wrong, but one of the things I did right was early on in my journey, I knew, okay, I'm creating makeup products. And of course, I want them to work for me and my rosacea, because nothing else will. And of course, I want to help other people. And those are great whys, but they weren't deep enough. And what I realized is, in my whole childhood, all growing up, I only saw images of beauty in magazines and on TV commercials. And they were never real, right? They're always overly photoshopped. And I never saw anyone that looked like me or had any skin challenges. And I realized in the development of this company, while I was trying to create a product that actually worked, and when I realized why didn't any other product work, and then I realized, oh, wait, I don't even know if the models are actually wearing the product they're advertising, all those things, I realized, okay, not only do I want to create a company that has great products, but I want to start using models that are every age, every size, every skin tone, every skin challenge. And I want to authentically define them as beautiful and mean it and all those things. And I had this realization on the why beneath the why early on, that like for me, it was like, oh, I want to shift culture and beauty. And I want to do this for every little girl out there who's about to start doubting herself, and every grown woman who still does. And that why was so deep for me because of my whole childhood realizing I'd see these images and I'd want to look like them. I'd aspire to look like them. And at the same time, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough. And so this deep why was so important. I talk about like how to do that in the book for yourself, for whatever your dream is. Because some people out there, they're like, oh my gosh, I really just want to dance and I want to start painting again, or I want to launch a business, or I want to become a pastor, or I want to start a blog, right? Like we all have these things. And I feel like we end up, right? Because here's the big thing. This is the big thing that, and I love just sharing this process in the book too, but so many of us know we have this calling on our heart, or this like, kind of inkling where we want to step out and do something, but like it's way more comfortable in our comfort zone. And I feel like when we stay in our comfort zone, it comes at the price of chipping away at our soul. That's the first thing. And when we have a gut feeling, an intuition, like we're made for more, like we have gifts or talents or ambitions to offer the world, one hard part I've seen and experienced personally too is sometimes the people around us, even when they're great people, whether they're family or friends or whatever, and they love us dearly, they don't have that same inkling. like they don't get it. They're super happy in their comfort zone. And what happens to so many people is we have the volume turned up on listening to everyone around us. And then we have the self-doubt in our heads of, oh, well, maybe I'm not qualified, or maybe I don't have what it takes, or maybe I don't, other people are way more advanced artists than I am, or other, whatever, that inner critic. So we start to turn up the volume on our own self-doubt. We start to listen to all the opinions of everyone else around us. And before we know it, we talk ourselves out of our own truth. And this happens to so many people. And in the book, Believe It, like a big part of why I did it too is like, I talk about the journey of how to love the circle around you, but how to turn down the volume on the stuff that's not for you. And that goes against the calling of who you are and who you're created to be. And how do you add other people around you and turn the volume up on them? And even more than that is the self-doubt and everything that we all experience in our own heads, right? And I just feel like that self-doubt sometimes in our own heads is a bigger opposition against us than the people out there rejecting us or saying no, or saying you're not the right fit for us, or whatever it might be, right? And so this book talks so much. I share so much about how to break through that noise of self-doubt, and learn to actually hear your own intuition and learn to trust yourself, right? Because so many people don't even know how to tune in and listen to their own intuition. Maybe they haven't even heard it ever or in a long time, because everything around us is so much noise, from other people's opinions to people not believing in us and us getting no's and rejected, to then the self-doubt in our own head. It's a lot. And I think the journey of learning how to go from not trusting yourself to truly trusting yourself is huge. And it's so many people, it's their journey they're on right now as well. So this book is definitely for them.
It's crazy what you're talking about right now, even just, loving the people around you, but maybe turning down some voices or working through self-doubt. I was actually talking to my pastor this morning, and we were just having this conversation, and she was just saying, a lot of us have very unique calls on our life. Like a lot more of us have those than we realize. They either just don't realize them, or they don't have, the courage or the faith to kind of walk that out. And we were talking, and I was like, it's not my job to get these people to understand me. Like it's my job to follow what I feel as though like God has put on my heart, or what I feel as though is like inside of me. And that's something that I feel like has been a constant battle, not even necessarily with other people, but even with myself sometimes, because something specifically that I'm even trying to work on now is believing like the best is yet to come, and like being one of those people who believes like, oh, I am so excited for the future. I know what God has for me. I know it's going to be even better than what I've seen. And maybe it's just the year that we've been in or a lot of other life circumstances, but that's something that I'm working on for myself. And it's not about like being this positive person necessarily, but it's a deep core belief, not only in myself, but that there is so much good to come. And obviously we're promised trials, like that stuff will always happen. But I feel like when you're in the middle, like we talk about when you are talking about the difference between the headlines versus the reality, I feel as though that's where I feel like I'm kind of at right now, and where so many people listening to this are. How do you like navigate the in between? And not that it ever necessarily stops, but when you feel like you're in the middle and you see more in your head than you see that's like in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I love that you talk so openly about your faith, right? And all of this, because for me, that has been like the espresso in my latte in life. You know what I mean? In such a big way. So a couple things. I think that, and I have known this, but sometimes we know something, and until we actually truly experience it and look back, then we're like, we go from like believing it to like being certain of it, right? And in my journey, the thing that I know for sure, I know this for sure, is that every setback we experience is God's way of setting us up. Every setback is a setup for all that is to come. And I believe that the things we go through, even periods like right now that you're describing of feeling like you're in the middle and you're trying so hard to anticipate and believe that the best is yet to come. Even this season, right, I believe is a setup for everything that is to come. And I believe that in all my heart. And when I look back at it, I have learned every setback and every hard season and every season that was just okay was a way of actually making me strong enough to be able to handle the weight of the big God-sized dreams when they come true. Because God-sized dreams and stepping into our calling and stepping into who we were created to be, especially those of us that know in our heart we're meant for more, we're meant to give more, serve more, create more, love more, inspire more, right? Be of service more. I believe when you're at service at the highest capacity, that it's not about you, it's about how has everything you've walked through and been through actually helping someone else believe it's possible to get through it, believe it's possible to step into all of who they are. And we can't do that unless we've gone through it all as well. And so I believe our setbacks are God's setups for everything that's to come. And it doesn't mean they're fun, and it doesn't mean they're easy. When I look back at going through like the 3 years of rejection, or I look back at, painful moments, right? There was a moment where, the story when, we were a couple years into the business, I didn't know how we were going to make it. And we had a really big investor interested in our company. And I thought like, oh my gosh, he's going to change my life, because he had invested in all these consumer product companies that we all buy at the grocery store. And he'd his private equity company had invested in a lot of them when they're super small and made them huge brand names, household names. And I was like, oh my gosh. And we went through all these meetings, and at the very end, and I thought like, oh, if he invests in us, then we're not going to go bankrupt. And maybe he can help us get into all these stores like Sephora and Ulta and department stores who are all saying no to me. I thought it was the biggest, most exciting thing ever. And at the end, we flew out for the final meeting, and he was standing 3 feet from me, and my husband was right next to me. And he said, we're going to, I wanted to share with you in person that we're so grateful for your time. We're excited for all you're building, but we're going to pass on investing in It Cosmetics. It's a no. And I remember saying, okay, can you give me some feedback? Can you share why? Because I always think feedback's a gift, usually. And he said, do you want me to be honest with you? And I said, yes, please. And he said, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you know, with your body and your weight. And when he said my body and my weight, I remember this moment where I was looking at him, and it's almost like I was watching his lips move in slow motion as these words were coming out. And I felt my whole body flood with like this lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt. And it was this moment where it's like I was staring my own fear like straight in the eye, and I knew I had to keep my faith bigger than it. I also knew in that moment, deep down inside, I had this feeling, and this is why it's so important that we do the work of learning to listen to our gut and listen and learning to trust ourselves. Because in that moment, I had no proof around me that this company would ever grow or become successful. And then I have this person in front of me that I saw as a visionary. I saw as someone who truly created stellar brands. And he's telling me, no one will buy makeup from someone who looks like me, my body and my weight. And I had this feeling deep down inside my gut in that moment that he's wrong. And I also knew if I was ever going to prove it, I would have to figure out how to believe that for myself. And the other thing is, in that moment, I didn't even get mad at him. Of course it hurt me, and I had to learn, we talk about volume. I had to learn how to turn down the volume on those words from being on the repeat button in my head over and over and over for years. But I also knew in that moment, like, he's passing on investing in my company because the sole reason I want to create this company, he's been impacted by the beauty industry his entire life. And he's learned, just like we all have been taught, you have to look a certain way to sell something, right? And so he was just, I don't want to say a victim, but like a byproduct of what he's seen his whole life on television and in magazines. So it fueled me. And this is part of why mindset is so important, and why not slipping into that like woe is me victim kind of mindset. It was like, oh no, you know what? This is a gift. This is a setback right now. It really sucks. God, I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. I don't know how I'm going to keep the lights on. Like, I started going to the Costco. I don't know if you have a Costco by you, but the Costco outdoor food stand where you get the $1 hot dogs. Yep. I was like, okay, God, I'm doing that. And at least they taste good. And I was like, how am I going to keep this business alive? That setback was a setup, because it fueled me this deep, deep, deep why of like, oh, even this dude is like this dude in a business suit who has probably never bought a beauty product in his life is impacted the same way women are by the industry. And it fueled me. And so I believe, and really honestly, the reason I wrote this book, and like I'm literally donating 100% of the proceeds of the book. The reason I wrote this book is because I believe everything we've gone through, especially once we're through a lot of it, we learn like, oh wow, the next level of success is that it's not about us. Like, how can my story, your story, everyone who's listening's story actually be of service to other people when we actually have the courage to share it? And for me, that's where I get my greatest joy. And it's like the lessons and the stories in this book, if this can save other people from making a lot of the mistakes I made, and save them at least some nights of crying themselves to sleep at night, but more importantly, help them on their journey of like believing themselves, trusting themselves, like knowing they're enough, and just deciding it's possible to step in to who they were born to be. Like, to me, that's everything. And so the season you're going through right now, okay, don't even get me started right now on your calling, because first of all, you are magic. And so many people listening right now will agree with me. And everything you're going through right now is, of course, part of your own journey. But we all have the blessing of being able to listen to you and then actually have it fill us up and have us, all of us together, feel less alone when we're going through the same things. Do you know what I mean? And so even if it's hard right now or uncertain right now, or so many people, I mean, this year has been packed with uncertainty, right? More than so many people have ever experienced. And I would never downplay how hard it's been on so many people ever. I would never wish it on people ever. What I know through so many, and this book is so many personal hardships too, right? From adoption, surprise, you're adopted in your 20s. I found out in my 20s, to rejection, to like all of these things personally, right? I just think that they're all part of our journey to make us strong enough to be able to carry the weight of our calling when we step into it.
Thank you. Something I love so much about you is how you are so willing to share and to open up. And it's almost like you're this open book and you're trying to give value, and you do give value to pretty much every single person who I'm sure like even comes across. I love so much about the story, which this is in the book, so we're not going to go too into it.
I really want to go through the lies that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
So number one, I'd love to start with the need to please them in order for them to love me.
People pleasing is almost always a betrayal to ourselves. We are raised, and so often as girls and women, but when you actually look at the data, over 50% of women believe they're a people pleaser, but over 40% of men do as well. So we are raised to think, oh, I just need to make everyone else happy, and then I'll be loved, right? At our core, we all want love and belonging. And one of the big lies is I need to please everyone else in order to be loved, or in order to be worthy, in order to be enough. And here's the problem with that is so often we spend our lives, trying to please everyone else, but then actually betraying ourselves. And we become disconnected from who we are, right? And so the more we people please for others, when it's incongruent with who we are and what we really feel, the more we tell ourselves that we're actually not worthy of saying what we mean, of being who we are. And it chips away at our self-worth slowly but surely. So it is a huge lie that we tell ourselves that, okay, if I just make everyone else happy, then I'll be happy, then I'll be loved. And it's actually the opposite. And what's beautiful is and I go into Worthy Deep and how to do this. How do you truly learn to, not people please at the expense of betraying yourself? And when you learn to do that, your relationships get stronger, your self-worth rises, right? You're able to have a deeper connection with other people, because when you show up inauthentically, which is a lot of times what people pleasing is, you actually create a barrier of disconnection between yourself and that other person. So we think people pleasing, especially a lot of us as little girls and women were raised to get approval when we make other people happy. But long term, it doesn't feel like love. Long term, it does not. And so a lot of us get disconnected even from who we are, because we're so good at trying to make everyone else happy, but then not knowing even who we are and what we want.
Dude, this is so strong. And I'd love to dig even deeper and say, how do we do that? Because you even said, in that moment, sometimes when you've pleased someone, let's say you're in a relationship and you've really done something that it doesn't feel in alignment, but the other person is giving you the accolades. They're telling you how amazing you are for doing this thing that actually doesn't feel good to you. And so it becomes almost like a bit of a downward spiral, or you just double up, right? Because you're like, oh, well, they made me feel good about myself when I did this. I really like the feeling of feeling good with myself, so I'm just going to do it again. But long term, like you said, it actually doesn't align. So how do you start to break that? What are the things that, in fact, let's just take a random Wednesday, Jamie.
Yes.
So random Wednesday, you're a people pleaser. You get your validation from other people, from them applauding you. You wake up on a Wednesday and you've got all these habits, right? Where it's like you're used to, let's say you're a mom, taking care of the kids first, taking maybe care of your partner, maybe going to work, earning the money, coming home. You get into these habitual patterns. So how do you actually even start to break that?
The very first thing is to start asking yourself, how does this feel to my soul? Because when we do something really great for someone else, it could be a great thing. If I know my husband likes, something, a banana with peanut butter on it or whatever, great. When we do things that are kind for other people, but it feels aligned with our soul, that's great. It's great to text our friends, and uplift them. It's great to do all that. But when you get still and ask yourself, am I doing something that actually is incongruent with how I really feel? That's people pleasing at the expense of betraying yourself. And so often people say, oh, do you want to come over for coffee? Or do you want to do this? Or do you want to do that? Or can you volunteer for this? Or can you donate to this? And we want to say no, but we say yes. And when what we do comes at the expense of our own truth, that's when it can chip away at our self-worth. And a lot of us have learned to do that our whole lives, right? And so that is where it causes problems in your self-worth. That is when it creates barriers of disconnection in relationships. And we all know, and for most of us, we've done this, we've gotten in a relationship, and the stereotypical story you'll see in a movie where the girl just all of a sudden loves this kind of music because her boyfriend's into it. Or she starts dressing a certain way because that's what he wants, right? And in the beginning of a relationship, it might appear to make him happy, but long term, it either never works out or it works out at the expense of her own soul, right? So these things that might make someone else happy in the short term, long term, we're living a lie. We're creating a barrier of disconnection. And so it's so important because we start to believe I need to please them in order to love me. And it is a lie. It is a big lie, right? When we please someone else and then end up not loving ourselves because of it, it literally will lower our self-worth slowly but surely. The very first step is identifying how does this feel and just paying attention. Because for most of us, we become so numb to just saying the thing that makes the other person happy, saying the thing that's not true, but we're not aware of what does that cost us.
How many of us women ignore that intuition, that gut feeling?
Yes.
And so I think that that's so strong in just starting there, because I think sometimes you've been, you have a belief system that no, you are supposed to do or you should do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And that supposed to and should, I think, is part of what you're saying, where it's like we show up in service of everybody else except for ourselves.
Right.
And I have a quote of yours that really freaking hit me. I want to be loved more than I want to be me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. In Worthy the book, I share a story about how my mother-in-law is very into eating healthy and is all the things, and I am not so much. And we were at a holiday gathering, and there was broccoli and berries, and then there was these cinnamon rolls. And I kept looking at the cinnamon rolls, and I just felt like if I eat it, she's gonna judge me. And I have to go with the broccoli. And I write this whole story about how in that moment, I chose to be what I thought was loved more than I chose to be me. And I talk about how every time we do this, we think that we're going to be loved. We think we're creating approval or connection with the other person when all we're doing is betraying ourselves and creating a barrier of disconnection. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing about relationships is you can only, I don't care how good you are at being a people pleaser, the depth of love and connection you can have with another person can only be as deep as the depth of love and connection you have with yourself. And when you show up people pleasing for everyone else, thinking it's going to result in them loving you, before anything even happens, you start to love yourself less, right? Because you're betraying yourself. And then you're also creating a barrier of disconnection between you and them. And so for a lot of people, and especially women, right? The 50+% of women that say they're people pleasers and they struggle with it all the time. It's scary to think like, well, what if I speak my truth? And what if I offend somebody? Or what if that person doesn't like me? Or what if, right? All of those things. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, like every one of us craves love and belonging in our lives for fulfillment. We crave it in our relationships and our friendships, all of it, right? For 25 years of the Oprah Winfrey Show, that at the end of every single show, whether it was President of the United States, which she interviewed many of them, or Beyonce, or a murderer, it didn't matter who was on her show. At the very end, they were like, how was it? Was it okay? Was it okay? And she says that she realized every single person wants to know, like, did you see me? Did you hear me? Did what I say matter to you? And at our core as human beings, every single one of us wants that same thing. We want to know, like, did you see me? Did you hear me? Did what I say matter to you? And here's the problem is when we show up people pleasing and betraying ourselves, we are not showing who we truly are. We're not being seen for who we truly are. We're not saying what we really mean. And so it's impossible to create that ultimate expression of love and connection and humanity if we're showing up as something that's not who we are. When you learn to start one step at a time, right? We could do baby steps here. So for everyone watching and listening, like take this one baby step today of first just hear when you tell somebody something, how did that feel? Did that feel like the truth? Did that feel in my gut, in my soul, like what I really mean? And we are so conditioned just to, please everyone else. But when we start paying attention, we're like, oh, wait a minute. That's not what I mean. I don't want the broccoli. I want the cinnamon roll. You know what I mean? It's like we're, right? And no, I don't want to go to that movie. I want to go to this movie. Like just little things of paying attention to, wait, am I showing up as who I truly am? And then taking that baby step, right? So even today, everyone watching us and listening to us, taking that one step of just doing it once today, just one time, say your truth, even if you know that other person's going to be like, right? Because they're used to hearing what they want to hear. Just do that one thing. And you just take that baby step, one step at a time. And what happens is, there are going to be some people along the way. Maybe they're not your friends anymore. Maybe they're uncomfortable. Maybe it takes them a while to adjust. But over time, it is how you build a relationship with yourself. It is how you raise your own self-worth. And remember, in life, like we don't rise to what we believe is possible. We fall to what we believe we're worthy of. And every time we people please someone else as a betrayal to ourselves, we tell ourselves, I am not worthy of saying what I really mean. I'm not worthy of showing up as who I really am, right? And that impacts every aspect of your life. So take that one step today, right? Say what you mean, one step at a time. And over time, you start building your self-worth and you start building that depth of connection and real friendships and real partnerships. Right now, as we're talking, how many people are in a relationship and they just feel like something's missing? And they don't know why. They don't feel the depth of connection that they crave. And it could be a romantic relationship. It could be a friendship. It could be a relationship with your family. But like, I don't understand why we're not so connected. I want that connection. But then when you stop and ask yourself, wait a minute, do I have that connection with myself? Right? And that's where we need to do the work. And slowly but surely, the more that you show up as who you truly are, then you'll see the connection with the people in your life starts to deepen and you start to feel fulfillment and you feel more fulfilled and less like something's missing.
Good. I love that. And that's why I love that story about the broccoli and the cinnamon roll, because it's a little decision. It's a little thing that maybe other people would just brush by and not think twice about. And it's like, well, it's my mother-in-law. I know that she's going to look down on me. If I choose the cinnamon roll, fine, I'll choose the broccoli. Right? And you don't realize, to your point of the disconnection you're having with yourself, but then also to her, because you're being a false version of who you actually are.
Exactly. And so much of the time we think we need to people please someone else and this and that. And it's still a lie we're telling ourselves. I was sitting there thinking my mother-in-law is going to judge me for eating the cinnamon roll. I'm going to eat the broccoli. Meanwhile, how the story kind of wraps up is I'm like, you know what? I decide if I'm going to have an authentic connection with her, I need to show up as who I really am. I eat the cinnamon roll. I'm waiting for her to judge me. And she literally starts talking about the kids and how she could care less that I ate the cinnamon roll. So the whole time I was telling myself a story, projecting my own insecurities onto her, and creating a barrier of disconnection between me and her in the meantime, right? All because I was telling myself a lie that she was judging me, so then I was trying to please her because I wanted connection, realizing when you try to please other people, you just create disconnection.
Yeah, God, that's so freaking strong. And that goes to another lie that you talk about in the book, is that we always think we're going to be enough when. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. I'm gonna get so fired up out of this
let's
chair.
go, girl.
Okay, everybody watching and listening right now. Lisa, this is the lie. This is the lie that will take us down our entire life. This is the lie that has us thinking, okay, I just got to do more. I just got to achieve more. Then I'll feel enough, right? This is the lie that thinks that tells us because something's missing, it means I'm not yet enough. And oh my gosh, the lie that once I finally get the thing or achieve the thing or do the thing, then I'm enough. It is a perpetual lie that leads literally to nowhere. And so let me just start by asking like this question, right? For everyone who's listening and watching us right now, have you ever had this goal in your life and you thought, when I finally get that goal, then I'm going to be happy. Then I'm going to be fulfilled. Then I'm going to be enough. And for some people, it might be like, when I finally hit the salary level of my job. Or for some people, it might be like, oh, when I finally, get married, or when I finally have the white picket fence, or when I finally have 2.5 kids, or when I finally, get that degree, or when I finally get that dream car, or the 6-pack abs, or that certain fit, whatever it is, when I finally get that thing, like then I'm going to be happy. Then I'm going to be enough. Then I'm going to be worthy. And then what happens for so many of us, right? And everyone think about that thing right now or different examples in your life. But for so many of us, we work so hard. And for some of us, we spend a lot of time and a lot of years. And then what happens? We finally get that thing. We finally get that job title or that number in our bank account or that number on the scale or the 6-pack abs, the relationship, and we finally get it. And then what happens? Like, does it, right? And think about this in your own life. Did it solve all your problems? Did it make you happy? Did you finally feel like, yes, I feel fulfilled and I can ride off into the sunset in full fulfillment and bliss? For most of us, the answer is no, right? We arrive at the thing and then we go, okay, and we're happy. And for some of us, we're super happy for maybe a year or a month or a week or a few hours. And then we're right back there to feeling like, okay, that didn't fulfill everything. I still don't feel like I'm enough. So then what do? Right? I still don't feel fulfilled. We think, I've just got to achieve more. I just got to take it to the next level. Then that will be enough. And this becomes a perpetual cycle. So here's the deal. Here's the lie. Here's how we change it. Because this is big. Self-worth is the one thing that changes everything. And when you look at overall fulfillment in life, you always need to be growing, right? And that could be growing in your faith, growing in a hobby, growing in how you show up in the world, growing in your fitness goals, whatever it is. But we always need to be growing. This is for ultimate fulfillment. We always need to be contributing to something beyond ourselves, which could be in the form of some type of service or in the form of being a friend to someone who doesn't have one. It could be in the form of donating. It could be whatever, but always about something bigger than ourselves. So contribution, growth. We always need to be building self-confidence, which is so important. But those three things combined are multiplied by our level of self-worth for ultimate fulfillment. And when I say that in life, we don't become what we want, we become what we believe we're worthy of, self-worth is the foundation to everything. It's truly the foundation. And so many of us are really good at doing all the things that build self-confidence, like getting the job title, getting the marriage, getting the kids, getting the fitness goals, getting the 6-pack abs. Self-confidence can fluctuate based on our skills and abilities, if we're winning or losing, if our willingness to try and go for it. Self-confidence, even though it's internal, it's based so much on the external things happening around us. Self-worth is deep, internal, unwavering. It's us believing we are worthy of love and belonging exactly as we are. Not as we achieve, not as our past mistakes and failures, exactly as we are. And self-worth in so many ways is the foundation, and self-confidence is like the house we build upon it, right? Here's the thing. From the moment we are born into our world, and especially those of us in the US or any country that's like super driven, right, by socioeconomic success and all the other things, we are taught that if we achieve the thing, get the thing, then we'll be happy. So we're raised seeing advertisements all around us that tell us when we get the 6-pack abs, or when we get that dream car, or when we hit that number in our bank account, and we continue to think all those things will bring us fulfillment, when really they all bring us a lot of confidence, which is important, right? And when we're doing them and impacting others, they bring us, contribution and we're growing. Those are all important. But if underneath it all, we don't believe we're enough as we are, if underneath it all, we don't have strong self-worth, what that looks like is perpetual unfulfillment the rest of our lives. And there are so many perfectionists right now, probably listening and watching us, so many people that think like, okay, if I just achieve enough, then I'll be enough. If I just get and then they arrive at it and it's not. So then they go for the next thing and then it's still not. And they live their entire lives and arrive at the end of their life with a whole lot of cool things, but never actually feeling fulfillment and always feeling like something's missing. So it is important to do all of these things that build self-confidence, that do all that. It's important. But if you don't learn how to completely build rock solid, unshakable self-worth underneath it all, you will never, no matter how much you achieve, you'll never arrive feeling fulfilled. You'll never be able to fully enjoy it. Here's the other part of this. I have to do all this to be enough, which is a lie I believed most of my entire life. And a big reason, Lisa, that I wrote Worthy is because believing this lie, if I do enough, then I'll be enough. Like believing that, and for me, not understanding the difference between self-confidence and self-worth had me arriving at all these crazy dreams I could have only imagined happening and not understanding, why don't I feel like it's enough? And why don't I feel like I'm enough, right? And just to share a couple examples, I remember building at cosmetics and years of rejections, finally building it to a company with over 1,000 employees, right? Selling it to L'Oreal for over $1 billion cash. I got to that moment where I thought, this is it. I had sold my company for all this money and was on in Forbes and all the magazines, all these things. And I had so much self-confidence. And I got invited to Oprah's house for lunch. And I was like, this is my lifelong dream. And I went to her house. We had a 3-hour lunch, just me and her. At the end of the lunch, Lisa, she gave me her cell phone number and she said, call me anytime. You can call me anytime. I'm like, okay, like, freaking out, right? And now I had a lot of self-confidence. Everything on the outside was going so well. But what I didn't know is that is very different than self-worth. And even though a lot was going well, underneath it all, I didn't fully feel worthy. And so here's what happened. She gives me her cell phone number. My lifelong dream is like happening. I did not call her for 4 years. I literally didn't call her for 4 years. And this is what happens when we don't believe we're worthy underneath everything else. We will sabotage opportunities. We will stay stuck. We will not go for things and not understand why. And after 4 years, during that whole stretch where I didn't call her, I would tell myself stories like, okay, once I have the perfect thing to say, then I'll call her. That's why I'm not calling her. I just don't have the perfect thing to say. Or she probably thinks everyone wants something from her. So I'm going to prove I don't, and I'm not going to call. Like all these stories I would tell myself. And 4 years later, I realized that the reason I hadn't called her was because deep down inside, I did not feel worthy of being her friend. And the moment I realized that, number one, like I realized very quickly that's a lie. Like I am a kick-ass friend. You know what I mean?
You are, girl.
like, and in that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, my self-doubt and my thoughts, which we are not our thoughts, but our thoughts can convince us we are them sometimes. And my self-doubt and my thoughts had gotten so loud and were telling me I wasn't worthy of it. But that moment when I realized it, I felt in my soul, which is very different. In my soul, my knowing, like, oh, I am more than worthy of being her friend or anybody's friend. I'm a great friend, right? And that was the moment I picked up the phone and called her. I came so close to doubting myself out of my own destiny, even though I had built all these things that the world would say look like enough. So I must feel like I'm enough, right? And I still didn't. And I didn't know why. So it's a perpetual lie that we just need to keep getting enough, achieving enough, hitting enough goals to finally feel enough. All of those things are important. They all build self-confidence, which is really, really important. But nothing you can achieve will build self-worth.
I got so many questions here. Okay, where do I even start? So first of all, how did you start to identify those were excuses that you were giving yourself and that it actually came from the self-worth? Because I'm sure so many people listening right now, it may trigger some people go, oh my God, yes, I do it. But there's other people that even right now, the excuse that they're telling themselves, they actually believe. And I have utter compassion, right? It comes from I mean this in a sweet way, I guess, but like it comes from a broken place where you feel broken enough where you don't feel whole, you don't feel complete, you don't feel worthy to be able to then be a great friend. So how did you start to recognize that those were excuses? And then how did you pivot going from I'm not enough to call her to immediate, like for 4 years, and then you pick up the phone and call? What's that gap?
Yeah. So the gap is this. I just didn't know, right? And I didn't realize, oh, I'm telling myself excuses.
Exactly.
I actually believe them.
Right. That's the worst freaking excuse.
Yeah. I believe them. They're lies. I believed, just like my whole life, oh, when I achieve enough, then I'll feel enough. All of those things. And so it was a moment that hit me like a ton of bricks where I feel like, Oprah calls them aha moments. I would describe it as a moment my knowing surpassed my conditioned belief system.
Ooh,
I would define an aha moment as and we've all had them, right? The moment your knowing surpasses your conditioned belief system. And sometimes they come out of the blue and they hit us like a ton of bricks, right? And sometimes we work really, really hard to tune in and to hear our own gut and say, what is the truth, right? They can come in different forms. This was a moment that hit me like a ton of bricks. And in that moment, it took everything out of me to literally, I imagined myself in that moment, Lisa, turning down the volume as if it was a volume dial, turning down the volume on my own self-doubt and my thoughts, right? And turning up the volume on my knowing or my intuition that said, you are worthy of being her friend, because I know that's the truth. And right now, every single person listening to us, watching us right now, if you get still and you tune into that knowing, not in your thoughts in your head that our whole lives we've been conditioned to learn we're not enough, right? 80% of women do not believe they're enough right now. And it is a lie, right? But I'm not enough, that comes in the form of our belief systems and our thoughts, but that is not who you are. Every single person right now, if you get still for a moment and you tune into your gut, to your knowing, to your intuition, it'll tell you right now, oh, you are more than enough. You are fully worthy exactly as you are, like exactly as you are. And when we learn to trust that and to trust that knowing, it changes everything. So that moment when I decided to call her, it was like I literally imagined just turning down the volume on my self-doubt. I was like, I am not listening to this anymore. And just tuning into that knowing, right? And just like putting that on full blast that says, I know I'm a great friend. Like I know I'm worthy of calling Oprah. And that's when I just picked up the phone and did it and just took that step and did not let my self-doubt doubt me out of my own destiny. And it's one step at a time. Every person right now today, we're going to do this. Like literally, we're going to do this. Like no girl, no woman, no person left behind in knowing they're worthy. Because when you believe you are worthy, the second you decide to believe you are worthy is the moment every single area of your life changes. It's the moment past and future generations of your family change. Like the second we believe we're enough is the second it changes everything. It impacts everything. Because again, we do not rise to what we believe is possible. We fall to what we believe we're worthy of.
Everything that you've just said, it may resonate for a moment, right?
Yeah.
Everyone listening, like inspiration, motivation, we know is beautiful.
Yeah.
But when that person leaves, after they finish watching this interview and they're sitting by themselves and they get that ding, they get someone telling them they're not good enough.
Yes.
How the hell do they make sure they don't stay there? That's why I like to go deep, so that they've then got these tactics to then go back to.
I love this so much. There is a masterclass in this book and a whole framework on the 4 R's where you go deep into how do you identify your current definition of rejection? How do you redefine it? How do you revisit past rejections and redefine them? How do you become fearless over rejection and failure in your life, right? Because part of my journey was hundreds and hundreds of no's and rejection over years building It Cosmetics. A lot of times when people Google the story, they're like, oh, it's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, not so much, right? But a lot of us, we fear rejection and failure as something that is painful. So then we avoid doing stuff at all costs. We stay stuck. I so easily could have been in that Oprah situation, could have still not called her for 4 years, and could be sitting here with you right now thinking, oh yeah, I just got to, I'm just still not enough. I got to achieve more. I got to do more. I got to accomplish more. Then I'll call her, right? I would still be thinking I need to do all the things that build confidence or whatever, but not understanding, oh wait, it's a self-worth issue. And not understanding the difference. I want to say one thing before I forget too, is you're using this example of the train, right? And you get off or you get on and here's the thing too, is like, oh my gosh, for everyone listening, I keep like hitting your couch. I'm getting so excited. I'm getting excited up here. But for everyone listening and watching us right now, how many times have the train doors open and we didn't get on because we didn't feel we were worthy of it? We didn't feel we hesitated, we held back, and who freaking knows what would have happened if we stepped on because we believe we're worthy of it and the doors closed and we go to a whole new destination, right? That is why I'm so passionate about this, about building self-worth, because so many of us have doubted ourselves out of so many things in our destiny. You know, I mean, I came so close to never calling Oprah, right? And in my case, that was a lifelong dream I was sabotaging. I would have never then taught a course with her, all the things. I would have been on a different train. I wouldn't have been on a train teaching course with Oprah, which for me means so much. So how many things for you and everybody listening mean so much, but you didn't get on the train yet? And the doors are open. And then they close and the train takes off. But the good news is, just like a train schedule, there's another one coming. So how do you believe you're worthy of stepping on that train when it pulls right up to you and when the doors open? Because the trains are going to keep coming. But for so many of us, it's like we still don't step on that. We still don't put our art out into the world. We still don't show up on social media as who we authentically are. We still don't tell the person we want to be more than just friends. Right? We still don't register the domain for our business. We still don't set that boundary with the family member, right? We still don't, turn the lights on in the bedroom. We still don't put the swimsuit on in summer, right? All those things. And we're missing the train. We're missing the train. And that is what self-worth will do. Time for change has come, Lisa Bilyeu. Right here, right now on Women of Impact, time for change has come. Literally, when you build your self-worth, it changes everything.
And so we're going to be talking about how do you believe in yourself to transform your life, and why self-worth specifically is so important to your personal goals, your business goals, your entire life. Maybe we could start, Jamie, with defining the difference between self-confidence and self-worth.
Woo! That one question, that is like the power question. I'm so excited you asked that, because for anybody listening to us, watching us right now, this one thing will literally change like your entire life. And, our self-worth is our ceiling. Like our self-worth is our ceiling in every area of our life, our business, our relationships, our goals and dreams. A lot of people think, oh, I just need to get more skill set or more experience or more, confidence, which is different. And all those things are important. But underneath it all, if you don't believe you are worthy of the thing, it will not come. And so, in life, like we don't become what we want, we become what we believe we're worthy of. And so self-worth is literally the one thing that's like the foundation of all of it, that when you learn to build it, can impact your business, your goals, your dreams, what you believe is possible for yourself. So I'm so excited. So, okay. And to your question, self-confidence, while it is so important and so valuable, is actually completely different from self-worth. And most of us, I'll just speak for myself, most of my life, I did not realize that I was pursuing all of these things that built self-confidence, but arriving at them, not understanding why I still didn't feel like I was enough, or I still felt like something was missing. And I thought the solution was to work harder and achieve more and level up to the next level. And all of that is an important part of growth and building confidence. But none of it builds self-worth, which is so important because our self-worth is our ceiling. Okay, so let me break it down. I'm really excited about this. So
self-confidence, because this is something right now that every single person, every student, every,
Yes.
business leader crushing it, does not matter where you're at in your life. When you understand this one thing, it can completely transform your life. Like
Yes.
right now, it's a big thing. So, okay, just to kind of get granular for a minute. So self-confidence, while it's internal, it is so much based on the external. So your self-confidence is how you assess your own skills and abilities, your willingness to try and to go for it, how much of the world's definition of success you feel you have, and how you feel you stack up and compare and measure to others. If you're winning or losing at any moment in time, the studies show the boxer who wins the fight is automatically 30% more confident. Our confidence is fragile. It fluctuates. It rises and falls. Our self-worth, on the other hand, is the deep internal knowing and belief that you are worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are, not as your past or past mistakes or failures, not as your successes and what's happening all around on the outside, but separate from all of that, just exactly as you are, you're fully enough, worthy of love and belonging. And two big things on this. A lot of people worry, well, okay, let me back up. Self-confidence, okay? Every ad that we see growing up and on television and all the things that well-intended family members often say where they're like, how's your job? How's your kids? We learn to believe once I have great answers to those things, then I should feel enough and like I've made it. We learn through ads that like, oh my gosh, if I get that dream car one day, or the 6-pack abs, or that certain level in my bank account, or the certain job title, then I'm going to finally feel fulfillment and enough. And just to ask everyone who is, listening with us right now and watching us right now, imagine, like, so many of us are achievers, and especially part of your community, we want to be limitless and all the things, which is so important on our journey to fulfillment. And another piece of that is the self-worth. And so for a lot of us, right, if you think about, if you've ever had a big goal or a dream or a hope and you thought, one day when I finally get that thing, like then I'm going to feel fulfilled and happy. And for some of us, it may be a certain level in our business, or it might be finally finding a life partner or getting married and having kids, or, a fitness goal. It could be anything. And then a lot of us, we dream like, oh my gosh, one day when I get that job title or that, whatever it might be. And we work really, really hard, often for years. And then when you finally get that thing that we thought would make us happy and fulfilled, a lot of us arrive at that thing and we're happy for a while. But then before we realize it, we're like, okay, but why am I back to feeling like something's missing, or like this isn't enough, or like I'm not enough? And our answer to that is usually, I just got to work harder. I got to achieve more, get the next thing. And it becomes this never ending cycle where we achieve a lot and we grow a lot and we build a lot of confidence along the way, which is really important. But if we don't have underlying self-worth, we always arrive at those things feeling empty, feeling like something's missing, and just continuing to hustle harder and harder and harder. And it just goes on forever, because all of those achievements will build self-confidence, but none build self-worth. And when it comes to self-worth, a lot of people think, well, wait a minute, especially ambitious people. They're like, if I believe I'm enough just as I am, am I going to lose my ambition? Am I going to lose my edge? And it's like, oh no, when you fully believe you're enough as you are, like I have found, you get more ambitious, because you're now, like, oh, if I go for this thing and fail and fall flat on my face, like it might shake my confidence for a minute, but it cannot touch my self-worth. Like who I am, you become more fearless. And so knowing the difference between the two is huge. And there's a lot of great resources out there on self-confidence and on building it, which is, again, so valuable and important, but it is so different from self-worth. And Jim, maybe a lot of people like listening with us can relate to this, but I believed for the longest time that if I achieved enough, I would finally feel enough and I'd finally feel fulfilled. And after spending decades of my life achieving a whole bunch of stuff, and arriving at it, still going, why does it feel like something's missing? Like this is never enough. And learning like, oh, there's a massive difference between self-worth and self-confidence. And self-worth challenges in our lives show up in 3 ways. So I can dive into that if you want me to. For anyone listening, wondering like, well, wait a minute. Okay, this is a new concept. And now do I have issues with self-worth? It really can show up 3 ways in our life.
Yeah. Before we get into the 3 ways, there's a quote in here, and this is kind of what you just said was a mic drop. It's something to the tune of, in life, you don't soar to the level of your hopes and your dreams. You stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. Whether it's in your relationships, your careers, your ambitions, you don't rise to what you believe is possible. You fall to what you believe you're worthy of.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.